Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining today for another Maine SBDC webinar. My name is Kelsey Reardon, and you've probably gotten a couple emails from me. That will continue, so definitely stay in touch and keep an eye out for my follow-up email after this session, which will include a link to the recording and the slides and a one-pager provided with a lot of the information we're going to go over today. We are very lucky to have Maine SBDC at CEI Business Advisor Jen Stein with us to go over how to reach customers on Google. So today, with her background in communication and food businesses and general marketing information, she's going to help us understand how businesses are found on Google, how Google search works, and also sort of how to improve your visibility within Google via SEO and Google Analytics and ads and all that fun stuff. So she'll be able to sort of piece all of that together in a very easily digestible way, which will make things a little bit less scary. We will have plenty of time at the end for Q&A, so you can stay muted until then, but definitely introduce yourself in the chat. And any questions that you have along the way, you can plug right into the chat. But again, we will have time at the end to go over any questions that you have. And I already mentioned the follow-up email. So without further ado, I will pass the mic over to Jen.
Great, thank you. So yep, I'm Jen Stein, and I think one of the main things I see as a business advisor when we get to the Google is that it's frustrating, it's overwhelming, it's a time suck. So I'm hoping to kind of debunk some of those theories and help you understand how the algorithm behind it works. And a lot of the free tools, a lot of them are easy to set up, a lot of them might not be relevant to your business, but we'll go through each of them and how to set them up, how to use them, and what Google's kind of doing behind the scenes. Okay, great. Yep, so this is our agenda. So we're going to go through these 4 points. I'm going to throw kind of a lot of information at you, but we're going to have the Q&A after. And also, like Kelsey mentioned, don't feel like you have to write it all down. We're going to send you the exact presentation as well as a quick two-pager that's just about how to set up Google Ads. So you'll have all of that when we're done. Okay. Sorry, my slides are on behind. Okay, so I'm sure everyone here uses Google, everyone either on your phone, your desktop, tablet, or in most cases, all of the above. There are actually billions of searches every day, so billions daily, so that's a lot. So obviously, a billion searches aren't going to relate to your business, but hundreds or thousands will. So 4 out of 5 customers are using search engines to find your store address, hours, information relevant to see if they should come visit, if you have a brick and mortar, or how to order. And most shoppers at least start researching all purchases, not just the large ones like in the past, online. And before, these are all statistics from before COVID. So as you can imagine, this is all skyrocketing into the digital era. And then consumer reviews have also become a deciding factor for many shoppers. So everyone's seen the stars, all that. A lot of shoppers are actually buying just completely based on consumer reviews. So the takeaway from all of this is that consumers have a lot of information at their fingertips, and you're not in control of all the information, but Google allows you to control a lot of what they see. So the benefit of getting up and running on Google is that you can tell your story and you can give your facts. And then interestingly, a thing I'd like to point out is that research shows that people are more concerned with what they actually need in the moment than the brand name when they're doing quick searches on their phone. So they could be like, you know, like a person with a leaking roof is going to call the first plumber that shows up because they're panicked. But there's lots of different needs like that that businesses aren't looking for the name brand. So even if you're a brand new business, or if you're offering similar things to a mainstream business, if you can show up in Google, you have a better chance of winning that searcher's business. And your online presence helps them in that critical moment. So you have like a micro moment to get that impulse buy. And if you're on Google and showing up, you have a chance. And so the first thing to kind of understand about Google is the algorithm behind it. So it's called a Google bot, and it's a web crawler, and it fetches and indexes all publicly available websites. So whether you've told Google to come search your website or not, if you make it public, it is going to find it. So it's it follows links to links, and what it's looking for is the fluidity and that it's finding what it's expecting. So it looks at a link title and it goes to that page, that content, it's then scanning that content to see if it's relevant. So when you're searching, so everything that's out there then gets in this big index, and it's a lot like a library index where you can put in keywords, and then it's constantly updating that. So it's updating when you put new content, it's updating when you change a URL, like it updates all of that. And the whole idea behind it is to read all the content, categorize the pages, and help searchers find info that they're looking for. So Google's their whole business model is they want the person doing the search to find what they want as quickly as possible. And for Google, that means as least many clicks. So they don't want someone to have to take 10 clicks to find the answer to their question. They want one or less. And then they sort through billions of sites, web pages, and then they find the answers, serve them up, and they do that all through the web crawler. And then it starts with URLs. And then a good thing to know is that it's serving up what's relevant based on the pages. So when you search for something, it's not going to bring you to the home page necessarily, and same with people looking for you. So it's good to know it's going to serve the most relevant content. And Google likes things to be easy, just like users. So if you're making your content hard to find, Google's going to find it difficult, and it's not going to serve it up as much either. So then it takes everything and it's stored in an index, and then the index organized info by page content and other factors. And from here, they make categories, which we'll see later on. You'll have to choose a category for your business, but it's all based on information it's gleaming. And then with the Google tools, you add information that it might not have crawled to control more where things land. And then it's always ever growing is a good thing. It's like, so you put information out there and you don't have to worry, like Google's not going to only search it once and you're stuck with like, you put something, you change your hours or something. They're not stuck on Google. Google's constantly adding to and updating their information. And then every time a person searches in Google, the search is looking for information in this index and serving the most relevant, and then tracking where the person went next. So there's so many indexes. So we talked about 1 billion searches a day. It comes out to 1 trillion searches each year. And like, I don't even know how to picture that, but it comes to 40,000 searches per second. So that's a lot of people looking for a lot of things. And then for each response, Google decides what websites to put first, and it's all based on the index and information that you've given Google. So once you put all the information out there, it's an automatic computer algorithm on Google side, and it has more than 200 factors or signals that it considers. And that can be the language, location of the searcher. So like if I'm searching for, let's use the plumber example again. I'm searching for a plumber, I'm in the mid-coast, it's gonna serve me up first plumbers in my location, because the category plumber is relevant to your location. If I'm looking for something you can only buy online, like building a website, it may go further out because it's not as relevant that it has to be in my area. And then after identifying the best set of results from the information in their index, then they serve up in the hierarchy. Just make sure I skipped one, sorry. So, did I search two? No, okay. Sorry, I'm doing 2 screens and I get confused. So when we're looking at a person searching a query, they type in, everyone's done this, you search in a search box. And this is a Google box, but really when you see Google is used in so many platforms. So when you're on Google Maps and you're looking for directions, that's this Google. A lot of websites plug in Google to their website. So a lot of times when you see the magnifying glass, it's really a Google search. So you can serve up there as well. And then, so usually we tip in, so as a user, if you think about how you search, you type in whatever you're thinking. You don't like necessarily think about how, Google's going to read it. So phrases start playing into it, and keywords, and it's all, whatever you put in here is called a search query. And Google's job is to show the most relevant information. So it's going to look at, no matter if you put in even if you put in a paragraph, it's going to like cipher through that and search what it thinks is the best result for you. And a good thing to keep in mind is that it is going to serve up the content, so not your particular page. So if you could have everything you do on your homepage, but then one specific page about one service, that would be more relevant to how Google looks at it, because it's more concentrated content on what the user is looking for. And then I'm sure everyone's seen a search result page. So there's lots of things that are showing up here. So the first thing in blue is what you would click on. So that's the URL. And then this part where you see the blue and the green, that's all organic search on this page. So this is showing a page that has no paid ads. So the URL is the first thing. The second is the page title. So you also control that. So the URL you're controlling, so that's what page it is, that's what your website is. And then the page title is what you've named the particular page that it's serving up. So far in this search, you as the website owner have control of all of this information that shows, which is important when you go through and as we look at like analyzing what other, like you see data and stuff, what other ones are showing up, you can make sure what you're putting there is catching the eye and relevant to your consumers. And below that is the page description, which gives searchers more information about the result. And that's called a snippet. And it also pulls from your website. So you can also control what shows up in that snippet. If you are using something like Squarespace, there's usually a place for that. You can put it in metadata if you have something like WordPress or just a website built from scratch. And then also, if you don't put anything there, Google will pull the very beginning of the page's text. So you can also tweak this based on that. So if you don't have the ability or the tech savviness to put in a snippet on the code side, you can just make sure that the first sentence is really relevant to what you're trying to show up for in search, or what's most important to your consumers. And then some search pages will show a business profile. And so the business profile is pulling from Google My Business, which is one of the free Google tools. So if you set up, this is still organic, but it's coming from the Google My Business instead of web pages. So this is Google My Business is real quick, like to the point information about your website, link to your website, your telephone number, your address, anything that someone may be looking for quickly. So this is how two Google tools work together. So if your website is set up to be SEO friendly, which is search engine optimized, which really in this day and age means Google likes it. So you're following their rules. And then you've set up your Google My Business page. You now have two different possible places to show up on the real estate of this first return. So that can get really important if you're a simple local business and you're trying to attract people that are looking for things in your area. You can show up both in this list area as well as be the featured profile, and the chances that they're going to click on yours just are, times 100 if you show up in that Google My Business. And then in addition to the organic search that we were just looking at, which you do have control over, but if you're a brand new business, it might take a while to show up on those pages organically, especially if you're going into a saturated market or a market where there's just some big players. So like if you're trying to compete with something like Amazon or Walmart, it's gonna be a lot harder to show up above the fold, which is the scroll on the page. So in that scenario, you may want to purchase ads. And there's a lot of ways you can advertise, but the two ways on Google are the shopping ads, which are those at the top. And I'm sure you've seen those, but they have the name of the product, the URL of who's offering it, and the price as well. So you can put products in that area. That's harder to do as a smaller business, but a lot of, you can piggyback on an ad server too. It's a little more complicated, and the text ads you can control completely too. So this is, you choose everything you say in this, so you can make it really attractive to your customers, like call out exactly what they're looking for there and show up at the top of the page for certain search words. And then the last thing to look at, and this is there's also search results that show up at the bottom of the page. That's not paid. It's organic as well, but it's not based on what's on your website. It's based on what the search people did next. So it's user content. And so this is a really cool feature as a business owner to see, like you can go in and search where you want to appear, and then you can see what other people search for, and then you can see if those are relevant. Oh, I can plug those into my ads as well. And it's also just good to see what people are looking for. You might see something there that you don't want to be affiliated with too. And so then you should think about your search terms and why you're showing up with those related searches. And then we're going to look a little the resources to help you appear across Google. Okay, so the business profile. So we talked about this. So this is Google My Business. So this is it's a way you can show your critical business info for searches, and that's across Google Search, Google Maps, Google Play, anyone displaying that. It's going to be the first thing that is displayed, especially on mobile. Google serves up a Google profile, a Google My Business profile before the listings on purpose, because it's trying to get the most user-related return. So it can help. It doesn't replace a website, but it can help your profile stand out in search results or show up at all. So like in Google Maps, you may not show up at all because there's maybe so many Google My Business profiles above yours, you may be way down the page. So it's a good thing to get in place, and it lets you control a lot of details. So another thing to look at if you haven't set up Google My Business is you may still be a business on Google, you're just not controlling the content. So it's really good to go back, because your business hours there, your contact information, store location, photos, videos, and more. And so those are all things as a business owner that you want to control the story on. And then appearing in organic results and above, like so organic, it's like the more relevant, organic, original content you put in. So it's really hard to always be thinking about content for your website. It's good if you can put new in, but there isn't a real like cut and dry, like you have to update it once a week to show up. But however often you get crawled, if you have new content, you're just going to be ranked a little higher. Logical organization again. So how Google crawls your site is exactly how a user would. It goes link to link to link. So if your sitemap doesn't make sense and it's hard to find, you're going to rank lower for that. And page titles and descriptions. Again, anything you can do just to make it clear what's on your page and just serve up that information to Google, the better. So you want to keep it short, concise. I stick away from like fluff copy and just really call it what it is. Then optimizing images. This is a big problem for a lot of users now, because it's easy to just upload any size image, but you really want to resize your images to fit well, but not so small that they're blurry. So that's just a rule of thumb. And there's a lot, if you're using Squarespace again, or a platform like that, there's a lot of kind of hints that they give you of how to do that. And so just follow those is best. And fast load time is important, and then optimize for mobile, which I think as a user, you really see that. So like if you're on your own mobile phone, you go to Google search, you click on the website, it takes forever. What do? You click away and go somewhere else. So another free tool with Google is Test My Site. And so that you put in your URL in this tool, and it shows you all of what it's going to think is a problem. So it's going to tell you if it's slow, if your images are too big, it's going to give you a score. Load time, optimize, it's going to give you some hints of how to optimize for your load time. And then you can check the speed. You can check your score, and then this isn't something that's cached, so you can go back, put it in, test it after you make some tweaks, and you can see if what you're doing is helping or hurting. And then after evaluating, go back. And then I always say you should take all of Google's suggestions, because Google is the #1 reason you show up. So if you make Google as happy as possible, then you're just going to show up more. So doing all that. Another tool is the Search Console, and that also measures site performance. Search Console helps you monitor and maintain your organic search results. So versus your load time, this is showing how much you show up and then your traffic and performance from there. So you can make sure that Google can access your site. So you can make your site private, and sometimes people do that by mistake. So this is a good thing to test if you see traffic drop, is just like what's going on. Like maybe some of your pages could have got hidden for some reason, but you can see that. You can submit for new content. So if you had something change, like your hours or something like really important, like you stopped, like during COVID, if you weren't doing some services anymore, you can submit new content and remove content. So you can ask the Search Console, can highlight this is removed, and it will force a crawl so that it will be moved quickly and you don't have to wait for a crawl to come along. And then you can also monitor for other problems here, like in Test My Site. This may pick up performance problems like that you have dead end URLs and stuff like that. And then you can also see which queries led to the site and which websites link to your site. So you can see backlinks. So you can see, if you can look where you're listed locally or where traffic's coming from, and make sure if there's affiliates that you want to be listed on, you can go after them from there if they're not there. And then Google Analytics. So I think Google Analytics is one that feels really overwhelming when you go in and see everything that's there. But it's a free tool, and you can just generate code and add it to your website. And I'm a big promoter of just having the data. You don't have to act on it, but start collecting it early, because when you do get to a point that you want to understand the strengths and weaknesses of your website, or more about your customers that are coming, like the demographics, if you start tracking all that data early, there's no downside to having Google Analytics collecting that data. And then you can go back and use it when you're ready. And you can see a lot of things, like how much time people spend on your site, what pages they're visiting, did they buy something, did they drop off midway in your shopping cart, and also your bounce rate. And your bounce rate is a really important metric, because going back to how Google wants everything to flow and they want to serve up exactly what the user is looking for. If your bounce rate's really high, what that tells Google is that the people didn't find what they thought they were going to find. So either your text is misleading or your content is weak. There could be a lot of reasons for that, but a high bounce rate ranks you bad with Google. So basically, the Google Suite, everything I've showed so far is all free tools, and they're all in place to help you make smart decisions about your online presence. And it does feel overwhelming, and you don't have to tackle them all at once by any means. And on the last page of this presentation, there's a link to all these tools. But yeah, so it's just good to know how they all play into each other. And then there's one more tool. This one's also free, but it's Google Trends. And if you are at all interested in data, I'm a total data geek, so I love to just look at this. But you can look at trends. So you can, like, say you're thinking about offering a new product or something, you can go into Google Trends, put in that term, and see how popular it is. So you can see, so like on this, in this example, they're looking at all different kinds of yoga, so you can see which is more popular. So like you could start to see, like, if you're a baker and you keep hearing about, that everyone's making donuts in the area, or you want to know if you should add something, you could go in here and locally search if people are really looking for that term before you actually add it to your lineup and go out with it. So it can just be fun. It also can, just be fun if you're like, why is everyone talking about this? You can just go see what they're searching to get to all those queries. And then the last one, of course, Google offers a lot for free, but they're also in the business of making money. So the other thing they offer is advertising. And then, so there's a lot of different ways to capitalize on advertising. I think the most critical takeaway with Google advertising is that you're in complete control. So you set your budget, you can cancel at any time. So there's really no downside to testing it. Also, Google, when you do sign up, usually gives you a $50 credit if you spend $50. So you automatically have like $100, if you're willing to put in $50, have $100 to kind of test with. which makes it less of a commitment too. So the Google Search Network is a group search-related website and apps. Your ad can appear when people search for products or services you promote. And then the network includes Google.com, Google Maps, Google Play, plus search-related sites that partner with Google and publish ads. So there's a lot of agencies that just push out ads. So those can also all show up here. The Google Display Network is a large group of websites and apps that show Google ads. And then you can, and the nice thing about these ads is you can appear at any time in the buying cycle. So if someone already is kind of leaning toward one product, but they haven't bought yet, and they search something else, you can kind of jump in there and sway them with your ads. And Google really helps you set up with smart ads. So they are designed for small businesses, and they put a lot of data in front of you as you go so that you can make decisions based on relevance. They're flexible. You choose your own goal and customize your content. You choose your call to action, whether you want people to go to your website, you want them to call, you want them to visit your store, whatever it is that you want to do, you control that call to action as well. And then it's a straightforward setup. It's pretty easy. And once your ad is set up, Google will prompt you to make changes as it sees things that are working well or not working well. So it's kind of nice. They're kind of like your helper there. So you start by signing into a Google Ads account, and this is all in the one sheet I'm going to share. So I'm going to kind of breeze through this. But once you're signed in with Google Ads, one thing with Google, all of this, you need a Google account, but they are free. And you also can set it up through your business. But and you'll be asked your business name, your web address, and then this is your call to action. So this is totally up to you what you want to do. If you're totally digital, you would obviously want them to go to your website. If you want them to, if you're brick and mortar and you're trying to get them to come in, get them to come to your physical location. And you can also, with this, see how popular that was or how many people did that, which is good. And then, yeah, and then if you just want people to call, you can do that. So that might be like if you're a service oriented, like a salon, something like that, where you just want people to pick up the call and make an appointment. That's a really good option for that. And then you get to decide where your ad shows up. So you can specify a radius around the business like this, and you can make, obviously, the little ticker there is you can make it 15 miles, you can make it up to 40. And you can also set up a specific area. So if you know you want to include like 4 counties in Maine, you could do that by doing a specific area. And when you do all of this, you can see to the right there, your potential audience size shows up. So as you tweak things on this page, and like, so say you took out Belhaven here, that number of people that might show up would change. So you start to see how small your audience is or how big, which depending on what you're offering. So say you only have, you're trying to offload like something on sale and you only have 100, you might not want to hit an audience of 2 million, like this example. You might want to hit a smaller, more targeted audience. And then this is choosing your business category. So we talked about that earlier. You have to choose a category. Everything you've set up, this is how they classify categories. But everything you set up in like your Google My Business, everything should follow the same category. And then they're going to start, Google it's going to start showing different things to promote. So they know all the yoga in this scenario that's showing in this example. If you're doing something like a coffee shop, it might show up like to go or curbside or like anything else that might be relevant. But so they are choosing those based on what they have in their index. And so sometimes it's tempting as a business owner to be like, well, that's not quite right. I call it this. But you really want to go with the Google terms because they're pulling out of their index, which is a reaction to what people are actually searching. So even though you might relate to something like you might say, I don't know, like pineapple pie, and they have pie with pineapple, and you're like, that's not how we call it. You should go with what Google serves up there. And then you have a chance to put in 3 different types of text. And so the headlines and then the description line and then the URL. And the URL is an important one. So it's really tempting to always put your your homepage here. And a lot of people do that. That's not what you want to do. You want to put whatever you're promoting here, you want to bring the consumer to the quickest way to get either the information or to buy what you're promoting. So you don't want to clutter this by bringing them to another page, because like we talked about earlier, that means that Google is going to follow them through a couple clicks instead of a quick, straightforward path. So you want to make sure to keep that in mind all throughout. So really, when we're talking about what Google's looking for and stuff, it's really good user experience. So there's no downside to like doing it how Google wants. It's all just a plus. It's good for your users. It's good for you, and it's good for how you'll rank. A smart campaign. So then you select your budget. You can do what they recommend, or you can do daily average, you can do a total, and then you can also set your own. So as you're doing that again, it's all going to keep estimating your audience size. So as you put in, like it's telling you 10, that's going to be a lot less consumers. So you can kind of play with what makes sense. And then once you're live, you always can go back and tweak this. So going out and like doing something, if you're not super comfortable with Google Ads and you want to do a really small budget, go for it. But you can always go back and tweak it and bring it up. And there's nothing wrong with testing. Yep, so this is what kind of I was saying, but you can edit, pause any time. You can see your performance. It's really fun, again, if you like data, to go in and start seeing like how many times you were showed up and how many times people clicked on you and all of that. And then you can choose days and times when your ad can appear. So if you are, again, like a service oriented, or you're only open for certain hours, you can have your ads only show up then, which is just makes it more, if you're trying to get people to call, that makes a lot of sense. Like don't have them call you when you're not there. So there's a lot of control you have here. And then once you're up and running, you can also go in and remove irrelevant search terms. So like if you're showing up for stuff that's not connected to your business, you can take yourself out of those searches so that you're getting more condensed and more targeted results. So we're gonna recap, but so your next steps, if you want to like put this into motion, so on your website, either tweak it to be more search friendly and with useful information, make sure it loads quickly, works on all devices. As we saw, you have a lot of tools to test that. So if your website's up and running and you just don't know, go to Google, test it, and like look and see how well you perform or not. You can explore resources like Google My Business. I think even if you don't have a website, if you set up Google My Business, it's a great first step to at least make yourself available to show up in searches. And then consider online advertising to reach more customers. It's just, that's, I would say, is the last step. Have everything in place first so that when you do grab the customers and the click, you can bring them somewhere relevant to your business. This is the last slide. So this has links to everything we went over, and we're going to share this. So don't feel like you have to write that all down. And if you want to learn more, there's tons of stuff on Google, and you can always reach out to a business advisor here, and we can help you with any of these steps. That is everything. So if we have questions.
Awesome. Well, that was great. Thank you, Jen.
Again, it's like a throw up of information, but
yeah, it seems like it's a lot of information, especially if it's the first time you're hearing it, but Google makes it very intuitive. And we're gonna, like we said, we're gonna send over some documents afterwards that'll kind of help you like step by step go through the process.
And it is a very user-friendly process once you get in, and you do get prompted to finish everything too. So
exactly. So we don't seem to have that many questions submitted yet. So everyone go ahead and get those entered into the chat. I would say, what is one thing that everyone should do after they leave this session today? If they only do one thing.
So if you have a physical location, I would say Google My Business. It's the top thing. It just, if you're not showing up in searches, you're just missing a whole lot of potential interest and customers coming to you. So even if you don't have a website, I would say set up Google My Business.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you don't have to have a website to do that. And that can almost become your website in the interim before you get there.
if you do have a website, I would go to one of the tests and see how you're performing, just to know if you need to make improvements or not.
That's super helpful. We have a wellness coach with an emphasis on educating people about essential oils, but they're wondering how to get people to their site without necessarily looking for an essential oil coach because they don't think that they need one.
I would look at other terms that, so a good way to find is look at competitors and go to their site and see like what words they're using to describe and stuff. And then if you have a website, you can start seeing which terms people are searching for. And even in Google, if you put in essential oils on that very bottom that I showed, you can see relevant searches. So you could start looking at those keywords and then tailor something. Or what I would say, if you do an ad, what are the benefits of the essential oils? So if you don't think they're searching for that, they might be looking for stress relief or something like that. So find the term that they would be looking for, that the solution is the essential oils.
That totally makes sense.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. We have a Cruisin' Slice food trailer that recently noticed that their business was not listed on Google and was hoping to learn more about Google options for small businesses. So correct me if I'm wrong, but don't you have to like take ownership of your business?
So are you a moving food truck or are you stationary?
Let's see, we've got Nicole says she's recently begun taking the steps of listing their business on Google and stated that part of the verification process was to receive a postcard in the mail. So they're going, okay, so mobile is the quick answer.
So it's tough with Google My Business for mobile because it is about showing up on maps, and that's a big key of it. But you can still do Google Ads, and you also can do analytics on your website, so you can utilize some of the other tools. And also, but the location based is going to be tough for mobile. But you could advertise where you are on Google. You can also on Google My, oh no, you couldn't send that. Yeah, mobile makes it tough because search for maps is such a big part of Google's algorithm.
Location, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do like townships or cities? Like, or you really need that address?
You do for Google My Business. But if you partner with someone that has that, you could have them post on your behalf, or there's ways to kind of work with other people. But without a location, you're not going to be able to show up in like maps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of food trucks are sort of partnering with like brick and mortar locations. So they're parking out front on a regular schedule. And there's some symbiosis going on there.
Yeah, and if you are doing online ordering, like, I don't know, if you do pickup, there's some ways to get Google My Business to say you're an online business. So if you're doing, like, you're moving around, but people can always pick up if they order online, that would be a way to also get around that location piece. But.
Awesome. Seems like you answered that question that she was wondering about. Are the keywords on your website the most important for coming up in Google searches?
They aren't actually. I think they were when websites were first starting, but now it's content. So you can, they call it keyword front loading. And if you do that, that's what we were talking about, the bounce rate. It's bad. Don't have keywords on your site that your content doesn't also answer, because then the user comes, it's not what they were expecting, they leave, and Google sees you not as a resource for that keyword. So you just drop out of that search eventually.
That makes sense. So yeah, so making sure that if you're using them as keywords, you're also using them in your verbiage as you're going through everything.
You used to be able to game it and just load up a bunch of keywords, but Google's gotten smarter.
Yeah, well, that happens. I will be sending out the slides and a link to the recording, so you will definitely get a PDF of this webinar. With an online shop and no brick or mortar retail location, if I use my home info, will that be made public, or can I use the street address of my PO box?
I don't think they allow PO boxes, but you can make the address private.
Ah, perfect. See, easy. I assumed that was going to be bad news, so this is why we have you. They
still use the address, and they still, depending on what you're offering online, if it's relevant. So, like, say you're like a farmer offering CSA from your home or something. I don't know, that doesn't make sense. But you would, if it was like fresh produce or something, they still would use your address to serve up as a priority in that area versus if you were selling like sweaters, that wouldn't necessarily get you bumped.
Interesting. Okay. Within a Wix website, we have the option for meta tags. Are these something that they should be using?
Yes. So meta tags is where you would put the page title that was that green search return. So if you have, it's kind of complicated, but if you have an option to put page titles and description, that description would also pull into that snippet on the Google search page. So that gives you control. So especially on like shopping pages. So like if you just have a bunch of products listed, you don't really want Google just pulling the first text. So you could put, you know, your category and what exactly they're going to find on that page. And that would help again with your bounce rate and also have the user know that they found what they're looking for. So yes, if you can populate all that, it's helpful.
All right. We have a craft gallery who's going to be setting up a resource page for their consigners, and we're wondering like the best way to share this information with them. And I would guess that probably, I mean, it seems like Google is providing a lot of this information on a variety of platforms. Again, this session will be recorded and all of it is on will eventually end up on our YouTube channel after everything is processed later this afternoon. And so linking back to these sessions is totally fine. Probably don't just copy and paste it into your own website though.
The resource page is great because you're creating links, and so then Google has somewhere else to follow and you're connecting yourself with those other pages too.
See, so you're setting yourself up for success. But you want to be authentic. You want to come across as being helpful and sharing information that is your customers are looking for. So the wider net that you can cast that is authentic, that'll help you out.
And always think about the user. Like if you are giving something helpful for your user and they're interested in it, that's great. If you're just throwing a bunch of stuff in front of them they're not interested in, the user doesn't like that, and neither does Google. So it's just, if you think about how someone's using your website, it's easy to comply with what Google's looking for too. That
makes sense. Yeah, if you were a user, how would you want to interact with that site is a good mindset to go into designing things with. Well, I don't see any other questions that I didn't answer. If you have any, pop them in there. Ooh, got another one. Any suggestions on using links that don't divert people from your page? So internal links, is that what you mean? Because navigating throughout within your website, how does that work?
Yep, so internal links are great. So like say you have food products like olive oil or different salts and you have recipes, link every time you mention yours back to the page where they can buy it. That's a great practice. So if you're linking them, as long as again, you're not bringing them somewhere where they're like, why'd I land here? It's great. So always, if you're talking about something and you have it somewhere else, you should link there.
That totally makes sense. Well, that was super helpful. If you felt like your answers were, or your questions were not answered, please, please, please reach out for a one-on-one business advising session with one of our certified business advisors. We have advisors all across the state. People specialize in different topics and industries, but generally we can help with whatever's coming up. Jen is really great with marketing and communications and those things. So her contact information will also be in my follow-up information if there's anything specific for her. But our website has a big orange box on it that says request advising. And that is the absolute best way and easiest way for you to get one-on-one help. Otherwise, keep an eye out for my follow-up email. And thank you again, Jen. This was great.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.
Have a great day, everyone.